I don't think the insulting, confrontational tactics used by people like the amazing atheist are going to change minds. Not that I don't enjoy some of his videos, but he is, in the end, only preaching to the choir. I want to change minds. And if you want to be understood and change minds, then you have to start out by finding points of agreement. So I found a video by Geerup called The Lame Link Lemur, where, surprisingly, he said some things I agree with. Geerup says, essentially, that all the hype about the Ida fossil, Darwinism silly, and the TV shows and book being promoted is about making money with overinflated claims. I agree. And some of the claims were impossible to justify. For example, one promoter says, she could rewrite science. She could confirm Darwinian theory and debunk creationism. She could also question religion itself. Rewrite science? Perhaps a tiny chapter in the story of primate evolution. Confirm Darwinian theory. That was solidly confirmed back in the 1950s when Francis Crick and James Watson discovered DNA. Debunk creationism. If anyone thinks Ida will get creationists or anyone else to question their religion, they have seriously underestimated the stubborn ignorance of creationists. The most Ida can tell us is about going from a lemur-like primate to a monkey-like primate, and that won't mean any more to a creationist than claims about whales having once been land animals. When it comes to human evolution, the creationists have a problem with other fossils, of which there are plenty. We have hundreds of fossils of pre-human, near-human, primates, Australopithecus robustus, Australopithecus boisei, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, etc. If Ida is so important, then what are these fossils? Chopped liver. If there was ever a most important fossil find that should have gotten creationists to question the Genesis stories, it was Lucy. And where was the big hype and news when they found another Lucy-like fossil? Lucy was discovered in 1974. She was an Australopithecus afarensis that lived only about 3.2 million years ago. She really did transform our views of how we became human. If Lucy or other fossil evidence of Australopithecus afarensis and africanus don't convince creationists that humans evolved from a more monkey-like primate, then how can anyone expect the lemur-like fossil of Ida to convince them? How do creationists deal with this kind of evidence? Well, one creationist simply declared that Lucy was a hoax. I wonder, does he also think the moon landings were faked? There's no wondering why creationists don't trust this kind of science journalism when they resort to overinflated claims that are impossible to justify. Geerup also said that Ida was just a lemur. And I agree with what he said, but probably not with what he meant. What does Geerup really know about lemurs or the frogs and insects he said were found with Ida? Does he know that lemurs are not a species but a kind of suborder with close to 100 species in it? Does he know that Ida isn't quite like any known species of lemur? Yes, Ida looks more like a lemur than any other kind of creature, but that doesn't mean what he seems to think it means. Another thing that Geerup said that I kind of agree with was about how merely having features like eyes, fingernails and such in common with another creature doesn't necessarily make us relatives. An octopus, and all other cephalopods, have two eyes like ours, but our eyes don't have the same evolutionary history. Invertebrate eyes and vertebrate eyes use very different photoreceptors, with different chemistries, to sense light. Unlike the eyes of squids, cuttlefish and octopi, the human eye was put together backwards. In the octopus, the light-gathering cells are aimed forward, toward the source of light, but our photoreceptor cells are aimed backward, away from the light source. Worse yet, the nerve fibers which must carry signals from the retina to the brain must pass in front of the receptor cells, and that results in humans like us having a blind spot we don't know is there until pointed out to us by a biology teacher. The wiring system in our eyes is often used as an example of bad design that is only explainable by evolution. The nerve fibers in our eyes must gather into a bundle, the optic nerve, inside the eye, and exit via a hole in the retina. Your eyes, and the eyes of all other vertebrates, are blind where the optic nerve exits through its hole. It also means that any image formed on our retina has to pass the layers of blood vessels and ganglion cells, absorbing and distorting the image. The blind spot doesn't exist when the nerve fibers pass through the sclera and form an optic nerve behind the eye like in a squid and other mollusks. The octopus also gets a larger fovea and thus greater visual acuity this way. Cuttlefish have better visual acuity than cats, and because of their right way round retinas, their level of acuity covers nearly the entire retina, unlike vertebrates where it is confined to the small spot of the fovea. Squid and man have been proceeding down separate evolutionary pathways for over 500 million years. Our common ancestor was probably a nearly blind worm, or something like a sea urchin or nematode, neither of which had eyes, or a flatworm with primitive eye spots and only an ability to detect light and dark. We're still related to the octopus, though distantly, but the eyes are no proof of it. And when compared to insects, like flies and bees, man and squid have evolved very similar eyes. Evolution had to accomplish making eyes not just once, but many times. Of course, I can't agree with everything Geerup said. He thinks Noah's flood really happened, and that is impossible. I'd like to see how he explains how it is that a grown man can believe what to me seems to be one of the most childish and ignorant stories in the Bible. So, here are a few quick questions for Geerup, or any other creationist who wants to play. Did Noah get every species of land animal onto an ark that was, as Genesis 6 verse 15 claims, 300 cubits, by 50 cubits, and 30 cubits tall? Or did a smaller number of kinds of animals fit into the ark and then evolve, or adapt, into all the species we have today? And how many species do you think there are? Some biologists say there are 30 to 50 million of species on Earth. Others say from 5 to 15 million. Second question. How is it there were no rainbows until after the flood? Isn't that a couple thousand years with no rainbows? Did the laws of physics change after the flood? Did it never rain before the flood? Is the rainbow story fictional, even though the flood is real? Don't tell me to go to answers in Genesis. The point of asking these questions is to get you to think, because I don't believe you really have thought about what you claim to believe. I need to see you think, before I can believe you can. I seriously do not understand how an educated American adult can believe in the worldwide flood described in Genesis and still claim to have a functioning brain.